I just drank a little bit of my grandmother out of morbid curiosity. I think Reddit will have a kick with this. My mama passed away years ago when I was 12 and hit me severely in the gut with unresolved grief and depression. She has been cremated and my mom left me the responsibility to keep her urn in my room. I've since made her a shrine in her memory. My mom has now moved into a new place, now lives across the states, and I'm planning to visit her in the next week. She requested I bring some of Mama to spread her ashes in the river nearby her new house. Usually she likes to do this when we find a new place or a beach to take a little bit of someone we held close to her memory. Now, this is the first time I've touched the urn. It's never been open since her cremation. I, and my mother, are very spiritual people, and I have the irrational fear that touching the urn somehow will cause some form of hex or misjudgment on my part, so I've never touched it. But I cannot take the entire thing with me, so I opened it and poured some into a tightly closed jar to take with on the trip. In order to get the ashes out, I used a smaller measuring cup to accurately get a portion out of the container. With this, a film of residue was left in the smaller jar. In my extremely emotional, vulnerable state and morbid curiosity, when I went to wash out the small jar, I took a few sips from the murky water. I've since put the urn back in its place and refused to look in my mama's direction. I feel so conflicted. This grief is coming back, and now I feel a heavy sense of guilt and weight, like a children who accidentally broke a vase. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or I truly just did something back. Parts of me wish I never did this and told my mom I couldn't promise her wish. The other part of me is conflicted with the immoral action that I committed, a meager act of cannibalism, if it's even considered to be that anymore. I'm lost, confused, and now thrown back into a state of grief as if a part of my very dead mama has risen from the dead and has come back to haunt me for this stupid action.
Am I the a-hole for saying I would disown my daughter over piercings? My daughter, 17 female, has moved out of province for university. She's been mentioning piercings for a while, and I told her I would disown her if she got them. A few days ago my daughter sent me pictures of piercings she just got. She said she was really sorry, but she has been wanting to do this for a long time. She asked me if I would still love her. I said of course, but why would she be willing to throw away our relationship over holes in her body? If she got them, that means she didn't love me enough to be scared of losing a relationship. I mentioned this to my oldest daughter, 26 female, who lives with me. She said that her sister had contacted her a few days before in a panic over how I would react. I asked my eldest daughter why my youngest would be willing to throw away a relationship with me after everything we've been through, but also why my youngest would think I could ever stop loving her. My eldest paused, and looked at me with, I guess, bewilderment, and said it's because I said I would disown her. I told her I just said that to scare my youngest because as a parent, it's my job to discourage her from doing stupid things. Find me a parent who doesn't talk like that to their kids, and at least others' kids listen. My eldest rolled her eyes and said we aren't other people. I told her I'm a human being and I have the right to be angry and have boundaries. She said as a parent I have the obligation to model healthy communication instead of manipulation. I told her that manipulation is part of being a family. Babies manipulate their parents by crying when they don't get what they want. My eldest stared at me for a long time, and then just laughed and said that explained a lot about me. She said babies manipulating, she used air quotes, their parents because they have no form of emotional regulation isn't the same as a parent manipulating their child with threats and lies and being surprised that their children start to be afraid of their parents. She's always bringing up this weak Western parenting stuff, and she's always twisting things in her head because she's sensitive and vindictive towards me for perceived slights I've made towards her. My eldest said, why did you ask me if I know nothing? Right before you brought this up you said you were reflecting on how it is that your children can both care for you and resent you. And I told her they're adults now, so I don't care how they live their lives. She said obviously you do, otherwise you wouldn't be saying things like we're disrespecting you and trying to end the relationship by doing things that don't even concern you. She then got up, said goodnight and went to bed. Usually my eldest is mature enough to sit through a conversation like an adult, even if she gets emotional. I was surprised, and now I'm wondering if I actually did something wrong, but she has no right to tell me how to parent. Am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for sending my sister's dog to the pound?
Me 26 female, and my sister 30 female got into a big fight.
Her and her fiancé recently got engaged, and they both moved in with us because they are low on money.
I started giving them loans so they could get by, but my sister started using the money to go to bars and get laid.
I found this out and told her husband. My sister came to me and got mad at me for snitching.
I forgot to mention this, But they also brought their 9-year-old dog to stay with us, and it had many complications and is on its deathbed.
She started calling me names and called me broke, useless, ugly skank. I then argued that she was a broke hoe who brings in no income. I worked 16-hour shifts to help suffice for her and her fiancé.
The next day when she was at another bar, the dog kept barking, so I took it to the shelter.
Because clearly she can't keep relationships and can't provide for her own pet. When she came back home, she was mad. She demanded to know where her dog Snuggles was at, and I said it ran away while I was out doing errands.
She doesn't know, and I don't know if I should tell her, but am I the a-hole?
Am I the a-hole for spending my children's inheritance, leaving almost nothing to them and my grandchildren? I'm 63 years old. I took advantage of better times, financially speaking, and managed to get enough money to save, have a good retirement, and leave a good inheritance for my children. However, their actions in recent years has broken my heart. My oldest daughter is a lawyer, married to an attorney. I have another son who is also a lawyer, a third who became an engineer, and the youngest, who is a salesman. I have been a smoker for many years, and the predictable outcome has finally caught me, so I may not have many years left. After knowing this, my children began stabbing each other's backs, trying to get their inheritance earlier. Initially were frequent verbal discussions, that escalated to legal battles. The boiling point came when my daughter forged her brother's signature to take their part of the inheritance while I was being treated at the hospital. Now, none of the siblings can see each other in the eye, and only talk through lawyers. Saddened by this situation, decided to spend the money, thinking that if all of it is gone, they would have no more reasons to fight. I donated to charities, bought my wife beauty items, went on vacations with her paying for the better-looking hotel rooms, no planes because of COVID travel restrictions, gave my grandkids expensive gifts, bought my dearest friends and colleagues better equipments to improve their work. We bought a huge TV, prepaid for my funeral, tasted some fine whiskey, among other things. Right now, about 65–70% of my saving are now gone. I plan to keep enough for the time I have left, and leave my wife a good cash amount. However, my children are noticing that I'm spending a lot, and started to ask questions. My daughter figured out what happened on her own. I had no rebuttals, since I'm guilty of all the accusations she made, but then she mentioned that her children will suffer because of my selfish acts. Not only that, but I am cursing all of her grandchildren by doing this. That made me think that my grandchildren shouldn't be punished for their parents' sins, and maybe I was too self-absorbed to realize it sooner. That's my dilemma now. Am I the a-hole for making my girlfriend leave the country? I, 28 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 27 female, for 5 years. We met in college where she was an international student. She started working after graduating while I am currently doing a master's. Her company was sponsoring her visa until they got bought out and she got laid off. She was given a limited time to find a new employer to sponsor her a new visa, and it really stressed her out. She was applying to jobs every day and did a lot of interviews, but unfortunately, wasn't able to get an offer. She really wanted to stay since she loves the place and I would still be here in the country. While I was out with a buddy, he suggested that I sponsor her visa since we have been in a relationship for quite some time. I love her and I didn't want to see her so stressed out. I told her about the idea. She was hesitant at first. She said she didn't want me to think that she was with me so I could be her way to a permanent resident citizenship to the country. I wanted her to stay and I wanted to do it. We consulted an immigration consultant and decided to do the paperwork on our own. She was the one who mostly looked into the stuff we needed to prepare. She still applied for jobs but not as urgently as she used to. It took a while since we never really had anything joined. We lived together and just split the bills on our own. She had enough saved up to be okay for a while. I had to fill out some paperwork to be her sponsor and I felt uneasy about it. I did want her to stay but it felt like it was too much. Eventually, she was done with her part and all that was left was mine. I finally told her that I didn't want to go through with it. She was very upset and asked why. I told her that I suggested the idea because I didn't want to see her stressed out all the time, and that I eventually realized that I shouldn't have to be responsible for her. We had a long talk where I told her that I still want to be in a relationship with her but I just don't want to force to be responsible for her. She said she felt very hurt by what I said. Things changed and she didn't really talk to me after. She kept applying for jobs and attending interviews but eventually her visa expired. Before she left, I told her I love her and that I would really want her to come back. However, she told me that she sees me differently after the things I told her. It has been a few weeks since she left. I miss her cooking, her presence, and being able to spend time with her. I still want a future with her. However, our close friends have been telling me that I was an I disagree and I think they are biased. So, am I the a-hole?